Well, hello there. Certainly has been quite some time since I've sat in front of a camera to make a video for you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Staggertron, and today I would just like to share with you my PlayStation Vita collection. This video will be primarily focusing on the physical releases that I have in my collection. I have about 28 games, spanning a wide genre selection. So without further ado, let us get to the games. Alright, so the first game on my list is Army Corps of Hell. Essentially, it's if you took Pikmin and threw it into some kind of crazy heavy metal nightmare. Essentially, I guess you play as Satan and you've been dethroned as the King of Hell, and the objective of the game is to essentially reclaim your throne in Hell by controlling various minions in a Pikmin-esque type style. Graphically, the game's not too great, but again, the soundtrack is its strong point. So, if you are a fan of Pikmin-esque games, I definitely recommend checking it out. Up next, we have Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate. This is acting as the sequel to Batman Arkham Origins, and is sort of like a companion game because it does play significantly different than the console versions that we're used to. This is more or less a 2D beat-em-up brawler, focusing on exploration akin to, a Metroidvania style game. I haven't played this one yet, mainly because I am focusing on, eventually playing all the Batman games in chronological order, so that way when I do get to Batman Arkham Knight, whenever that is, I'll be caught up with the full story, and I'll be able to enjoy that one to its fullest. Again, if you like Metroidvania style games, this one definitely doesn't look too bad, and you should check it out. Up next, we have Conception 2, Children of the Seven Stars. Again, this is another game that I haven't played, but what I do know is that it's a JRPG where the main focus is, you play as a male protagonist and you have to romance various female characters, and from that you have the ability to create offspring, which then become your party members, to go into the various dungeons and explore. From the gameplay that I have seen of this, it seems more or less of a dungeon crawler, so definitely worth checking out, and I do plan to play it at some point. Up next, we have Criminal Girls Invite Only. This is again another dungeon crawler type JRPG with a much more 2D focused on a sprite style. Very interesting looking game. Essentially the story premise is you must gather a group of girls, and they must travel through hell to basically atone for their sins. This is considered a fan service game, so there is actually a lot of sexual references and some partial nudity. It's not too over the top, but again, some people might get turned off by this. Again, a game that's definitely part of my backlog and I will be checking out at some point. Up next, we have Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc. This is quite possibly one of my most favorite games on the Vita. It's just a very interesting game. I don't want to give away too much of the plot because the plot's pretty in-depth, but it's essentially a visual novel but mixed in with Phoenix Wright type elements. It almost to me seems like it's Phoenix Wright meets Saw in a very comedic sort of way, because there is a good variety of emotions, whether it be like fear or sorrow or just being flat out funny. The characters are enjoyable. The antagonist is probably one of the most favorite antagonists I've seen in a video game, and it's definitely worth owning a Vita for, I think. Just don't watch the anime before you beat the game, because it sort of spoils the game for you, but that's my own fault. But anyways, definitely check this one out. I can, I highly recommend it. Up next, we have Danganronpa 2, Goodbye Despair, the sequel to Trigger Happy Havoc, of course. Now, I've not played this one because I still have about a chapter or two left of Trigger Happy Havoc. But from the looks of this game, it's the same great gameplay, just a different story, which I'd imagine is just as good, and a whole cast of new, interesting, and unique characters. And of course, Monokuma makes his return in this game, so I'm definitely looking forward to playing this when I get around to it. Right, so up next we have Demon Gaze. This is a first-person dungeon crawler RPG. It's good to see that this style of game is coming back. I know for a number of years it was stagnant, and then on the 3DS and the Vita, it seems like Japan has definitely made a resurgence of this style of game. I remember these games being brutally difficult if you want to go back in the day with such games as wizardry and Eye of the Beholder. Now, of course, coming to a new generation, they're probably a lot more accessible, but it is good to see that this style of game is making a comeback. And the sequel to this, well, actually, it's not even a sequel, but the same developer is making an additional game called Operation Abyss New Tokyo Legacy. There it is. And it's the same style of game as this, but it's got more of a gothic style to it. So I'm probably going to add that one to my PlayStation Vita collection. Again, this is Dynasty. Check it out. Alright, and here's Dynasty Warriors next. Now I know what you're all thinking. Oh, nobody needs another Dynasty Warriors games. There's like 20,000 of them, and they all play the same. Yes, that's true, but Dynasty Warriors kind of has a soft spot in my heart. It's sort of a guilty pleasure. I don't play them very often, but at least once a year, I feel the need to play this style of game, whether it be Dynasty Warriors or Sengoku Basara. But this game actually revitalizes the series in ways because it adds touch controls, which, you know, doesn't seem like a big deal, but it definitely refreshes the gameplay style, and it's definitely worth checking out because there is a lot of content here. Again, Dynasty Warriors isn't for everyone, but if you're a fan, I definitely recommend checking it out. Alright, and here's Gravity Rush. This is the game that pretty much made me buy a Vita. I remember buying it as a part of a bundle when I first picked up my PlayStation Vita. This game is definitely interesting. I'd say this is another one of the games that you definitely should own. It's kind of like an open world action brawler. I believe the developer that worked on Silent Hill also worked on this game as well. I don't want to give away too much of the story, but you definitely manipulate gravity in a lot of ways, and you can float through each different areas. It has a really cool art style, cool story, and the game controls really well. Again, if you don't have this game, you should probably pick it up. Again, it's a reason to own a Vita. Alright, so up next we have Hotaru no Nikki, the Firefly Diaries. This is a little bit of an interesting one because it was originally supposed to be a digital-only release, but the only way you can get a physical copy of this, I believe, is if you pre-ordered it from the NIS America website, which is kind of cool, and I'm definitely glad to have this in my collection. It's sort of like a 2D puzzle platformer that takes place in a really gritty, dark world, so you definitely get an eerie vibe when you play the game. And essentially you control two fireflies to guide the main protagonists throughout the levels, manipulating light and darkness. So if that interests you, definitely check it out. Up next in my long list of Vita games, we have Hyperdimension Neptunia U Action Unleashed. It's actually a spin-off of the Hyperdimension Neptunia series. Now, I am a big fan of the Hyperdimension Neptunia series. I have the 3 main games, and I think it's just a really cool concept, although some of the cheeky humor and over-sexualizations may turn people off. I think having a real representation of the console wars being represented by people, in this case over-sexualized anime girls, but nonetheless, it's just a really cool creative concept with lots of humor, and this game right here particularly plays more to like Dynasty Warriors. Now, there is this really, I guess, cheeky mechanic where if you take too much damage, you do lose your clothes, but I guess that's what the developers were going for, and again, it's rated teen, so it's not too bad, and there's not too much nudity, so enjoy. And here we have another spin-off in the Hyperdimension Neptunia series, Hyperdimension Neptunia Producing Perfection. Now, this is a idol simulator, which is a type of game that I've never played before, really huge in Japan, has never really made its way to the West, which is one of the reasons why I decided to check it out, something different. So I'm guessing it's probably a rhythm type game, and you have to manage the girls in the game to sort of make them become famous idols. So it should be interesting to play. Again, if you're a fan of Hyperdimension Neptunia and you want to have another game in your collection, check this one out. Alright, so here we have Lego Chima Laval's Journey, which is also based off the TV show. Now I know Lego games are a dime a dozen these days, but I wanted to have some exclusive ones. Not necessarily to the Vita, but I know Lego Legends of Chima and the next 2 Lego games I'm going to be talking about are exclusive to the handhelds. This is basically the same as any other Lego game, but I do particularly enjoy the characters and the setting, and I feel like this game is a little bit more action-based than the other Lego games, but it's also a collectathon, so if you are a fan of Lego games, you're going to be a fan of this one too. Alright, and here we have LEGO Ninjago Nindroids. Again, wanted to keep the LEGO games exclusive to the handhelds, so you could also get this one on the 3DS. I believe this particular version is based off of Season 3 of the show. I myself have never watched the show, but being a fan of the LEGO games, I just wanted to check this one out. Alright, and here's the last LEGO game in my PlayStation Vita collection. This is the sequel to Ninjago Nindroids. This is LEGO Ninjago Shadow of Ronin. So again, good quality LEGO fun. Just wanted to have it in my collection to say that I have both Ninjago games. Alright, so up next we have Mine Zero, another Japanese RPG, which is great. I mean, if you're a Japanese RPG fan, you should definitely get a Vita because there was no shortage of these type of games. Now, this game has been compared a lot to Persona in terms of theme, concept, and style, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Upon first inspection, I thought this was more of a traditional turn-based Japanese RPG, but it looks like it, upon viewing screenshots and gameplay, it looks like a first-person dungeon crawl RPG, and I've actually become quite akin to those type of games, and I'm starting to rather enjoy them. So this is definitely one game I plan to check out, and I've added to my PlayStation Vita backlog. Alright, and here we have Modnation Racers Road Trip. Now I love Modnation Racers on the PlayStation 3. Spent so many hours creating tracks and doing all sorts of zany, crazy things, and tempting my friends to try all my crazy tracks that I made. If we're kind of gluttons for punishment, we try to make the craziest tracks possible. And I'm a big fan of Mario Kart style games, so of course Modnation Racers Road Trip was a no-brainer, and it's great to see it on the PlayStation Vita. The only downside to this game is there's no online multiplayer, which isn't really a bad thing in my books, because as of late I've become more of a single-player gamer anyway, and I remember just buying this game in a bargain bin for like $7, so for that price, definitely worth adding to my collection. And here is Muramasa Rebirth. This is I guess a remake or an HD remastering of your Muramasa the Demon Blade for the Wii. Now, if you've ever played any of VanillaWare's games like Dragon's Crown or Odin's Sphere, you know that the sprites are very well drawn, and it has a really clean, very cool Japanese folklore sort of art style. And this is a 2D RPG. You get to play as two different characters with two different sets of with two different stories. The action is very fast paced. This has a bunch of DLC for it. Another reason to own the Vita, I think, and it looks absolutely fantastic on the PlayStation Vita TV. Alright, and here we have Persona 4 Golden, perhaps to be considered by many the greatest PlayStation Vita game of all time, and the mecca of JRPGs. I myself have not played this game, shame on me, but I do plan to add this to my PlayStation Vita backlog. There's just so many JRPGs, and not enough time to play them. Up next we have Ragnarok Odyssey. This takes place in the Ragnarok universe, which I believe was a MMO RPG that was really popular on the PC back in the day. This is more or less a Monster Hunter clone, really, where you basically create a class and you go on various missions, defeating monsters, grinding gear, and other upgrades. It's a really fun game. There is a bit of a story. I've sort of played it off and on. I'm about halfway through it. I'm really liking it. Graphic style is really cool. Gameplay is really solid. It's an action RPG, of course. There is an updated version that you can get called Ragnarok Odyssey Ace, which I have not played yet. But if you are a fan of Monster Hunter, I definitely recommend checking this out, because there's no Monster Hunter games on the Vita yet. They're all on the 3DS. And here is Resistance Burning Skies. Now, I do like the Resistance series. I've only beat Resistance 2. It was just really cool to see how they would pull off a first-person shooter on the PlayStation Vita. The second analog stick really does help. And it has actually surprisingly good multiplayer, and it's really solid and really stable. Although I haven't played the multiplayer in quite some time, so I'm not too sure if the community is still active. But if you are looking for a decent first-person shooter and don't really like Killzone Mercenary, definitely check out Resistance Burning Skies. And here we have Senran Kagura Shinobi Versus. This is absolutely another fan service game. This is actually the same developer behind Hyperdimension Neptunia U Action Unleashed. This game came out first though. It's more or less a Dynasty Warriors clone, but there is a lot of content in this one. There's, I believe, 3 individual stories for 3 different clans, plus submissions, and a lot of collectibles, so you do get a lot of bang for your buck. The one big gimmick, which may be a turnoff for some people, is the object to beat the bosses in the game is you definitely have to undress them by fighting them, and basically the more damage you do, it removes various articles of clothing. So again, this game was total fan service, but if it does interest you, definitely check it out. And here we have Silent Hill Book of Memories. Now this is a bit of an interesting take on Silent Hill because it's not your traditional Silent Hill game, and the reason why I decided to pick this up was because WayForward was one of the developers on it, and they have a really great track record in terms of like retro 2D games. But this is kind of an interesting take where it's a 3D dungeon crawler with an isometric view similar to Diablo, I would say, and has a really strong focus on multiplayer where you can sort of create your different classes, and you basically traversing various demonic dungeons, but you can kind of tell this is a Silent Hill game based on the enemies and the environments that you traverse, but it's definitely one of the more obscure Silent Hill games out there. Definitely worth checking out, I'd say, if you could find it on the cheap. And here we have Sorcery Saga Curse of the Great Curry God. What an interesting title that is. So this is more or less another Japanese RPG that I wanted to add to my Vita. Haven't really played it all that much, but the premise seems sort of interesting, and it's a roguelike RPG, and I haven't really played too much of those, so again, just trying to expand my horizons in terms of different genres, whether it be within Japanese RPGs, so I'm definitely willing to give this one a shot, and I'll probably add it to my backlog. Alright, and this is Spy Hunter, a sort of remake or reboot that sort of came out of nowhere. I love the Spy Hunter series. I love the old school Spy Hunter arcade. I love Spy Hunter 1 and 2 that I have on the PlayStation 2, but unfortunately this game seems to take a step backwards. They sort of redesigned the Interceptor and made it red. It's always been a classic white or gray, and the graphics don't look too great, and the controls are kind of shoddy, so it's definitely a disappointment. Mind you, I haven't played it in quite some time, so maybe going back to it with a second look I might get a more appreciation of it, but again, more Spy Hunter never hurt anybody. It's just a shame that this is a disappointment and you'd have more fun playing Spy Hunter or Spy Hunter 2 on the PlayStation 2. Alright, so here's Tale of Hearts R, another great installment of the Tales series that Namco is known for. Again, another great JRPG to add to the list. Haven't put too much time into it, but the the graphics are great, soundtrack is great, battle system is pretty awesome, and I definitely want to sink more time into this one. But there's just not enough time in a day to play all these games. But if you're a fan of JRPGs, definitely check it out. Tale of Hearts R. I believe this was a remastering of a Wii game that was exclusive to Japan. Alright, and this is Tearaway. This is by developer Media Molecule. If that name sounds familiar, it's because they are the developers of Little Big Planet. Now, of course, this being a new IP and a PlayStation Vita exclusive, it does vary itself quite extensively from Little Big Planet. Where Little Big Planet had a art style focusing on yarn, this one is sort of like a paper craft. And when going through this game, it definitely feels like going through a storybook. This definitely has some creative elements similar to Little Big Planet, but a lot less. It's not, you can't create your own levels, you can't do things like that in this game. This has a more narrative story, and it's like a 3D action platformer, which definitely is a good thing. I definitely need to put more time into this one, but this is definitely one of the Vita games that utilizes all the features the Vita has to offer, from the back touchpad to the touchscreen to the camera. You name it, and it's definitely solid. So if you don't have this game, you should probably check it out. Alright, and here is Wipeout 2048. Now, this is a combat racing game. This is essentially my F-Zero fix until F-Zero comes out for the Wii U, if that's ever going to be a thing in Nintendo. I'm hoping at E3 that's a thing, but this will hold you over nicely. Good sense of speed, interesting tracks. Again, it's a car combat game, so you get different sorts of power-ups, different ships. I'm fairly new to the Wipeout series. I know it's been around since the PlayStation 1 days, but I really never got into Wipeout until probably PlayStation 3 with, I think, what was it, Wipeout Pure and Fury. So I'm definitely glad to add this to my collection. I got it on the cheap. I think I paid $10 for it, and it's really solid. So if you'd like F-Zero-esque games and you have a PlayStation Vita, check out Wipeout 2048. Alright, and here is the last game in my Vita collection, Virtue's Last Reward. It is the sequel to, I believe, what is it, 9 Hours, 9 Days, 9 Doors? 999 in that order for the 3DS. Apparently that was a critically acclaimed visual novel, and this is the sequel. So I decided to pick it up. Haven't really played this that much, but it's a murder mystery type visual novel-esque game, so I'm definitely going to be checking it out at some point, considering that I've put so much time into the Danganronpa games. So this is definitely on my list to check out soon. Alright guys, so there you have it. In a nutshell, there are all my physical releases for my PlayStation Vita collection. Now I know I can go into much detail in terms of, you know, some of the specific games, because again, just with time, haven't really had time to sink into, you know, a lot of the PlayStation Vita games that I do have. But hopefully you enjoyed this video. Definitely leave a positive or negative comment down below. Do you like these sort of collection videos? Do you want me to make more of them? I have all various collections for different systems like 3DS, Wii U, a lot of the retro stuff. So if you are interested in seeing more collection videos from me, definitely let me know in the comments below. And again, till the next video, which hopefully isn't a long time away, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.